Hi, and welcome back to Rediscovering RC, my personal journey as I venture back into the world of RC and RC racing after an almost 20-year hiatus. I'm your host, Julio, and you know, if you had asked me about 6 months ago whether I would have probably been to the track a couple of times by now, I most definitely would have said yes, but nobody expected the experience that we would have these past couple of months, and unfortunately I'm still waiting to make my first day at the track for a proper shakedown of my gear. But in the meantime, you know, I figured it would be fun to take a look at my not-so-little friend here. What we have here is basically the Plano Phantom Pro. Now, if you were a racer back in the 90s, you know, if you were serious about your racing, chances are that you probably were lugging one of these around. I guess the best comparison I can make of this is probably the OGO 9800 of the 90s. But unfortunately, unlike the 9800, this thing didn't have any wheels, so it could get pretty heavy depending on the equipment that you have here. So in either case, I mean, I want to keep making preparations as I, prepare for my first day at the track, and I figured it would be fun to take a look at what's inside, see what tools I could probably still use, what the things I can probably put on the shelf as a keepsake, I guess, or throw out, and figured I'd bring you guys along for the ride. So give me a chance to get things set up, and we'll take a look at what's inside. Okay, so I got the Phantom Pro here set up in front of me. If I could give you a quick tour of what the Phantom Pro had to offer for your enthusiast RC racer. Basically, you had a top compartment which had plenty of room inside for stand-up bottles and the like. You probably had roughly about 5 inches of space here. On the right-hand side, you had a section that was basically partitioned off. That was really for fishermen to put their lures, their standing lures, the ones that look like little minnows, on there arranged. But those dividers made it great to help you organize all of the, basically all your containers and all of the chemicals that we used in the hobby. To the left side, you've got a big, I would say about a foot wide compartment here that's just open space. Again, 5 inches tall, so you can really pack a lot of stuff here. Up in the front, you've got a panel that opens up that reveals 4 basically drawers that are all partitioned off. It came with a lot of dividers, so you could organize that as you wanted to. The biggest thing about that is that for the sub-C cells that the cars back then used, it was the perfect size on the bottom trays to store all your packs. So you could easily have anywhere from 8 to 10 battery packs in here that you could use. So anyways, let me go ahead and open it up. And let's see what's in here. So for the most part, I mean, over the years, I've still been using this as a general toolbox. I've got a lot of tools in here, obviously, from the RC hobby and other things that I picked up. But anyways, let's take a look. So the first thing that we have here is basically my pit rag here, my pit towel. And what we have inside was really essential for racers back in the day. Now, if you haven't seen this before, basically this was a battery dump. And what this was used for is that roughly, these are standard 12 volt, carb batteries for, carb light bulbs for basically your tail lights, etc. And roughly, back then, the calculation was that each one of these bulbs pulls roughly 2 amps to a live battery when you connect to it. So obviously with this, I had basically 12 bulbs, which equated to 24 amps. Now, since I ran mod back then, this was basically to pull the voltage out of the battery. So with the old NiCad and nickel metal hydride batteries, what you wanted to do is you wanted to bring the voltage down to pretty low value. And the quickest way, this would serve several purposes. Number one, it would drain what was left in the battery because you never really wanted to leave voltage in those batteries to begin with. Number two, you could use it as a gauge to see how much juice you had left in the battery. So this was an essential tool aside from the fact that it discharged the batteries. So with LiPos today, obviously you have to balance them and keep them at a specific charge. So something like this really isn't useful anymore, but it's a nice little keepsake to have if I ever need to use some batteries. So I can't believe it. The soldering joints all look good, and I spent a lot of time working on this, so that's pretty cool. Let's see what else we have here. Alrighty, so I would say the late 90s, early 2000s was when really the wrenches with using drill bits as the tips really started to become popular. This was the original factory team set that came out back in the day. I got this when, I think roughly when I got my TC3. So, I needed some newer hex wrenches, so I went ahead and got these. So everything these days is metric now, but it never hurts to have some US measurement wrenches around. So I guess I'll keep that tucked away somewhere. Yes, a compass cutter. So this, if you run sedan or anything where you need to make wheel wells, this is pretty handy. This will, basically you measure out what your wheel well size needs to be, and you can pretty much make a perfect circle cut every single time when you cut this. So I know I have another one in here somewhere. These are very dispensable, and very indispensable rather, and my bodies looked really good with the wheel wells when I started using a tool like that. Something that's always going to be very useful, zip ties. So I'm definitely going to keep this around. This is definitely a relic from the old days of when shocks used to have little C-rings. So this is basically one of those ring pliers, so you can get the rings. The Associated original gold shocks used to have like a little circle ring, a little ring clamp that would keep all of the O-rings and everything inside of it. And you basically needed a set of pliers like these to get those out. So thankfully, shock technology has progressed. We don't need tools like this anymore, but this is still a handy tool to have around the house just in case. So I'm going to hang on to these. Here's the other one. So this one here is a European brand, Alpha. Again, a circle cutter. Lots of great, I've got a body up here somewhere. I'm sure that has a sample of what the wheel wells looked like. But again, this was still great to use. And I think I'll keep that around when I get back into touring car racing. Let's see here. You don't see these much anymore. These are basically film cans. I used to use these for various things. I used to keep diff balls in here. I used to buy them in quantity from a company that was called Small Parts Inc. They had offices here in Florida. I used to buy from them every once in a while. They had great stuff. They had diff balls in U.S. sizes that were common in cars back then. Their hardness was pretty much the same as anything you could buy on the market. So I used to keep these in bulk, and I probably have some here somewhere. So let's keep looking and see. Little story behind this. This is basically an analog caliper, all plastic, which for back then was affordable. Back then, you could get digital calipers. The only really common one that was available back then was Mitutoyo, which were very expensive. I mean, if I had to make a comparison, I guess you could say, okay, the Exogen temp guns that are available today, used by all the top, pro nitro drivers out there today, with the cost of that compared to like other temp guns that are available in the market, that was the difference back then between something like this and a digital caliper. So thankfully with technology, digital calipers have gotten much cheaper. I've got a set that I use to help build my TLR rides. So, definitely this is something I'll probably just keep around, just to have it, or anything that doesn't need to be so precise. So let's see. As again, I told you I used to use this for general tool storage. I've got a long Phillips screwdriver in here. I don't think I need this at the track. Likewise, what is this? Little Craftsman's hex socket driver. Ooh, 7mm. This might come in handy. Good for my off-road buggies. So I guess I'll keep that. Now this is a blast from the past. This is an Unger 12-volt soldering iron. And you would think that, generally these 12-volt soldering irons are no good, but being an Unger, this was fantastic. The tip is still, I could probably use a little radio tinning. But I had an Unger UTC 300, which I still have put away. I've since upgraded to a Weller digital soldering iron, but this is still very handy. When you used to go to tracks that really didn't have electrical power readily available, I used this a couple of times. Back then we used to solder our batteries into the car, so this was really useful. And I guess I'll have to test this to make sure it still works, but still a great tool to have. Wire strippers. These are always handy. Klein Tools, pretty good brand. We've got another little Plano storage box. This has, I know what these are. I guess I didn't sell these with the rest of my stuff. So, look at that. A set of brushes for a motor, which I still have a bunch of brush motors around, so I guess that'll be handy. I got some silicone tubing. We used to use these for, dampening. Before you had shocks, you kind of had a little wire with these silicone tubing as dampeners on the cars, and I still have some of these. And look at this. these are basically the little nuts that you were on the original RC10. I've got a full set here, front and rear. And these are probably the front axle bearings as well for the RC10. Don't know that they're still good. Let's see. It's hard to tell. Yeah, they still feel good. Wow. Another little box with various parts. I've got some old, before Dean connector. Well, actually, these kind of came into popularity around the time of the Dean connectors, and actually, these were a little better as far as the amount of amperage that they could withstand. I've obviously got some that I kept off of old batteries, and these have two good, kind of gold finish, and a lot more space here on each side than what your typical Dean connectors provide. So, yeah, one way so that you don't get them. These might be useful in some applications. I think I'll keep these around, and I've got 1, 2, 3, at least 5 or 6 sets here. Yep, some very high. I don't have the number, but I would imagine this is around 600 grit sandpaper, always useful. And some really tiny shrink tubing that might come in handy as well. Yeah, so these are handy too. Also Plano. I mean, Plano's cases are useful for everything. To go with the 12-volt soldering iron, I had a holder and cleaner from Archer. And if you've been around long enough, you know that Archer was a Radio Shack brand. The box itself is falling apart, but everything here is still intact. So this might be useful to keep around. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know if I'll be taking this toolbox around with me. I've got other, ways of storing things that I've purchased since I started again. So let's see. An old tweak bar. So for on-road, this was critical. And I mean, you wanted to make sure that your car was tweaked. And basically this one, I had the parts, really it was just for 10 scale, I think. Oh, I hope I'm not missing a part lengthwise, but yeah, used to use this on my 10th scale car to make sure that it was properly tweaked whenever I measured. So the only bad thing about this one is that it really didn't have a bearing. There were tweak bars that came along later on that added a bearing here, so you really didn't have any resistance when you were measuring tweak. So that's interesting. I know what this is from. This is from the wing flap from an old Protoform oval body. So I still had that around. Not my best work in terms of cutting, but not sure how that made that into the toolbox, but it's still here. Oh, another film can. Some solder. Awesome. Again, Radio Shack, rosin core solder, and this is the thin one. I've got some electronic projects that I could certainly use this on, so hopefully it's still good. My old 2-inch brush for cleaning the cars, so this will definitely come in handy. Wood handle, awesome. I thought I had actually lost that. Here's another battery connector, so let me go ahead and put this in here as well. Keep it with the other battery connectors. Awesome. Hey, another set of ring pliers. I don't know why I ended up with 2 sets of ring pliers, but again, always handy to have just in case. So right off the bat, I've got Lexan scissors, always handy. And these I think are, Tamiya Lexan scissors. And these are still good. I used these about a year or 2 ago, so I know they're okay. Let's see. Oh, my old Roar card. Still have it. Actually, I used this when I renewed this year, so had my old number. I still renewed it. My number is in the 50,000 range, so that's going way back. These are great. A needle file set again. Obviously, you can tell I used to go to Radio Shack a lot. These are all also Archer branded. I've got 5 different needles here. There's a square one, there's 2 flat ones, and 2 different size round ones. So this is something that's definitely going to be useful. Now this is, yes. This is a Composite Craft RC10L sway bar kit. I actually adapted these. You see small ones here, which was what this was originally for, which was for the Super Speedway version of the RC10L. But I actually handmade wider ones for the regular RC10L. I found that a sway bar on that car made a world of difference in terms of the handling characteristics of the car, and like I said, I just needed different thicknesses to be able to tune the car either further, so I relied very heavily on this. Awesome. Nice little keepsake there. Okay, now we're getting into some of the chemicals, but let's see. Some remnants of bearing oil. That's probably not any good, but I guess I could always use a bottle. Wash this out as best as I can with a degreaser and use it for something else. I'm sure the needle is still good. So yeah, I'll probably keep the bottle around. JB Weld. Your hardener and your basically steel putty. Got some leakage here, so I'll probably have to do something about that. Well, figures, totally dried out, but this was Zap Z7 debonder. To eliminate the possibility of CA mistakes, you definitely wanted this on hand, and I would say that you probably still would want some of this stuff around just in case. Man, back in the 90s, you used to hear stories of people like gluing their eyes shut and stuff. It was crazy. Oh, there we go. Some associated silicone shock oil, 20 weight, which is what I typically used in my RC10L, so that's why it's here. Almost brand new, so I would imagine this hasn't decayed over time, so I may just keep this. Or put it, I think I still have some shock oils with my TC3, so I'll probably put it with that stuff. Oh, some soldering flux. You could always use some soldering flux. Again, Radio Shack. Got various little bottles. If you were an RC racer in the 80s and 90s, you probably knew who Bud Bardos was. He had his own line of products. This is, I believe this was like a silicone oil. I used to use this for diff lube in my ball diffs on the on-road car. So pretty good stuff. Don't know that this is still good today, but again, I could always use the bottle for some applications. So. Yeah, this was this was for my nitro car. I basically took an old Bud's bottle and I basically put some Marvel Mystery Oil in it. This was really good after run oil. I'll probably have to change this out, but I might use this for the same once I get back into nitro racing. So some more mystery lube in a funny little bottle, but nice needle. I don't know. This used to be clear. Now it's like some yellowish gold color, so I don't know that this is any good. But again, maybe I can reuse the bottle. Ew, something leaked. Oh, an old bottle of thread lock. Although I gotta see what. Hey, after 25 years, you figure some of this stuff is gonna turn to goo. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, this was a product line, I think company Dr. D's that was here in Florida. Had some, this was a polythin solvent, which is all gone now, but this was really a solvent that you could use to remove your paint off your bodies if you made mistakes or something like that. It was one of the first that promised to be able to remove the paint. A lot of, the old Pactra stuff, it was really difficult to get off without ruining the body. But this stuff could do it, and I had friends that actually repainted their bodies using this stuff. So this was really good stuff. May have to throw this out because, yes, yeah. Again, another Dr. D product, and this is still here. And this was some great stuff. This is orange peel. This was a traction compound for on-road racing. Very pleasant smell. It was based on oranges, so again, it wasn't sticky, but this thing had some great characteristics once you let it soak into the foam tires. And I know of some people that in touring car in the early days started using this on rubber tires as well. It managed to soak into the rubber. One of the side effects with actual rubber, though, is that over time it could make the rubber softer. So you would get good traction, but at the cost of a little bit of reduced lifetime of the tire. So this stuff still feels, well, I may have to use pliers to open it up, but it looks like it's still there. It was pretty new. I don't even know what this is. Mineral spirits. I used an old tire traction can to store some mineral spirits in, which is like all dried up now. So gotta love these single take videos. And we also have Trinity Magic Bite. what do you know? Another traction compound. Now this was typical of the stuff, kind of smelly, got the job done. Honestly, I prefer some of this stuff, which was, you know, biodegradable, you know, I guess more environmentally friendly. All natural ingredients is what they touted back in the 90s. Now everything is all about, you know, preserving the environment and all that. It was nice to see that thinking back, you know, 20, 30 years ago. So let's see what else we got here. This was a composite craft jig for, you know, gluing up your batteries into basically, you know, either whether you wanted your saddle packs. This was indispensable, and I used this quite a few times. Oh, still have this brand new in the package. Dan's RC stuff. This guy Dan, he was a great guy in the industry. He had some great products. You know, he really thought like the everyday racer and really provided a neat range of products. You know, at a pretty good price too. So body mount foams, indispensable. So all you companies out there, more of you should be making this stuff because this will help you save your bodies. Oh, look at that. Oh, here we go. A Roar 1991 legal frequencies list. So, in case you didn't know, here was your know-all list for all the legal frequencies here in the U.S. if you were running RC cars. So, actually came out of an issue in RC Car Action. So, trackside reference guide. What have you got here? Okay, common gear ratios for 32 spur gears. 48 and 64 pitch. So pretty cool. And you also had your transmission output ratio, so you could calculate final drive on all the popular cards at the time. You had, yeah, the RC10, the RC10 Stealth transmission, the YZ10, JRX2 and T, the Junior 2, bunch of Kyoshos, Tamiyas, Schumachers, Traxxas. Wow. That might be fun to keep for old time's sake. Oh, here we go. This was indispensable as a serious driver. This, my friends, for brush motors was a brush alignment tool. So basically you loosen this up after you got your, you know, basically your brush hood put together. You would slide these in, tighten it down, tighten down the brush hood so you could align your brushes, and this pretty much kept your brushes perfectly aligned against the commutator. So pretty cool tool for its day. And I would imagine for modern brushed motors, like for crawling and stuff like this, I would imagine that you would probably want to make sure your hoods are aligned as well. So I might just keep that around. Wow. These are, may as well throw this out, but these were basically some lead weights if you needed to make weights. These are little blocks that were measured out. You can, you know, I think it was like every quarter inch was one, you know, I think 2 ounces or something like that. So you added weight as necessary to make weights. I will probably be throwing that out. Okay, so that was everything that was in the top. Let me take a quick break here and then we'll go to what I have in the drawers.